You're listening to GWP Live. I'm your host, Isaac Hedges, joined by co host Jacob Ulmer. Today is Thursday, February 19th, 2026. We are delivering live updates on an ongoing weather cycle. Again, more of this headed our way. Not severe weather, though, an important distinction to make. Of course, in the past, we've done these live weather updates in the event of severe weather, but again, this is a test for actual severe weather events, but nonetheless, we are covering current weather events. So, Jake, what are things looking like?
Yeah, so we do have a fire risk for today, so we're going to kind of talk about that since that's the actual weather. But the first thing I want to say is that, again, this is completely a test run, as we mentioned. And so everything that we're going to be doing is we're just going to be showing you what we would be doing if we had active severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings across the state of Missouri in our particular region. So most likely, we would start off the severe weather update by showing you here's where the area is that's been outlined by the Storm Prediction Center. Enhanced risk, that's considered a 3 out of 5 on their scale of severe weather. And so that's Southern Illinois and Indiana. Right now, our tornado risk is pretty high across these areas. Well, I shouldn't say high, okay? It's an enhanced risk. So again, it's not necessarily a high risk. It's higher than it would be on, let's just say, a typical day of thunderstorms. It's higher than the wind and hail risk, but it's not necessarily a high risk. So not a high risk for tornadoes. Probably what I would consider a low to a slightly elevated risk of tornadic activity. And so let's see, so we would show you the radar, of course. So we have some thunderstorms out there right now just to the west of Fort Wayne, Indiana. So this is the National Weather Service radar that we are looking at right now. So we do have some thunderstorms that are a little bit on the stronger side. We could be experiencing a little bit of small hail in these. At this point in time, we do not have any severe thunderstorm warnings or tornado warnings. If those were active, then we would go ahead and we would read off the information for those different alerts. We would highlight the areas at risk, and then we would show you, like this storm right here is continuing to move. Well, we'll just go ahead and kind of show you here as the progression of these storms has continued to be further towards the east. So this storm has been strengthening just a little bit in intensity, and it could continue to do so as it moves towards Fort Wayne. So, of course, Fort Wayne, Indiana, a little bit of a more populated location, experiencing some light rain, but we could get into that thunderstorm activity later on into the daytime hours today. So we've got those thunderstorms. We also have some heavier thunderstorms moving across the St. Louis area right now. These are non-severe as well, but we have recently, if I there it is. There was a meso scale discussion that was put out for the area across Indiana. That has now expired, but we do have this area across the St. Louis area that has been issued for elevated storms that could produce marginal hail through the middle of the day. There's the risk for 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter to half dollar size hail. So we've got small hail and slightly strong winds here. So 60 miles per hour. So that's kind of on that lower end of the severe weather risk. So it's not necessarily, like 70 or 80 miles per hour. So it's not super severe, but it is going to be on the lower end of the severe side. So 50 to 60-mile-per-hour winds. And then we could also have a brief EF0 or EF1. It also says that it's unlikely that we would see any sort of severe thunderstorm or tornado watch. And the reason for that is because, well, the risk for seeing severe storms is so low. And so something else that we would show you if this was a real severe weather update is we would show you power outages. We would look at different individual states and how the storms are affecting power. We would also periodically update you on the different storm reports that are coming in from the Storm Prediction Center. So currently at this point in time, we do we just got a severe thunderstorm report a little bit ago, and we're currently experiencing some technical
Ah,
difficulties at this point in time.
so, a severe thunderstorm report just moments ago. Again, collecting details on that here momentarily. Again, though, as we mentioned, across the country to this point, not a great deal of severe weather expected. Again, the closest we're seeing to that is a little bit in Indiana, kind of on the lower end of the severe weather spectrum. As you mentioned, Jake, as far as our regional listening area here across southwest Missouri, we are under a severe fire risk, which again is worth noting for people in the area. Certainly, those that burn regularly, if you burn trash, burn brush, different things, maybe hold off on that for a little bit, but because again, there is elevated risk. Again, the weather conditions at this point make that more of a hazard for things to spread and really get out of control, and we wouldn't want that. So, again, it's not the ideal situation, but if you can hold off on burning, by all means, just hold off on it for now. Jake, do we have any more information on the severe storm update that was just put out?
Yeah, so we got a storm report. So this was actually from a couple hours ago, but I was using this as like an example if we were to get an update during the live stream. And again, this is a live stream, but it's a test live stream. So just keep that in mind once again. But the report was at 15:53, there was a 67-mile-per-hour wind gust that was reported 2 miles northwest of Benton in northern Indiana. So again, we're now, or at least earlier this morning, we did have that storm report that came in. And so if there was any like tornado reports that came in, that's what we would be doing at this point in time.
Absolutely, and that's something you'll want to stay tuned for, as we mentioned, for severe weather updates again across our listening and viewing area as we have severe weather updates, different things like that in the event that those happen, tornadoes and different things like that. Again, this is going to be the first place you want to turn to for those different things. And naturally, of course, as we mentioned, this is a test event, a test severe weather live stream. In other words, we don't actually have severe weather at the moment. Again, we are covering current weather, but this is how we ordinarily would be covering severe weather in that event. Now, of course, in that event, we would have some insight, hopefully a bit beforehand, about it, and would put out notice that we're going to do a live stream. Of course, in this case, it was a bit more impromptu, so there's a good chance that many of the folks at home viewing this are seeing it after the fact and not live, weren't necessarily aware of it beforehand. And again, that is just fine in the event of serious, major, severe weather updates for tornadoes and different things like that. We will, if at all possible, again, put out an update about that, what time we're planning to go live, just to give a little bit of notice on that so that you know when to tune in. Jake?
Yes, and we just got a new update here, and we have a new weather alert that has been issued. We have a special weather statement that was just put out for that thunderstorm that we were just talking about a few minutes ago, west of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so this is currently not a severe thunderstorm. So I want to emphasize that. But there has been some small hail, non-severe hail, non-damaging hail, and a few stronger wind gusts that have been reported. So at this point in time, the source is radar indicated, so it's not confirmed. The hazard is for half-inch hail and winds of 30 mile per hour wind gust or less. So that has just been issued for this area, just to the west of Fort Wayne, Indiana. That was issued by the Webster, Indiana National Weather Service, and that currently goes for Wabash and Whitley counties, and that continues until 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So it continues for about another 18 minutes. The risk for small hail, so probably around the size of, I would say, penny size hail is what we're most likely looking at this point in time. Dime, most likely in between dime and penny size hail. And you'll notice it's right where we have these purples in here. That's where we have the risk for some dime to possibly upwards of penny size hail. And that's going to continue to move further towards the east here. So Fort Wayne, Indiana certainly could be at risk of seeing a hailstorm, at least not a severe hailstorm at this point in time. That would be south of Fort Wayne. If it continues its kind of eastern trajectory. There we go. Can't speak today, apparently, now that we're live. But and it's going to continue to move further towards the east, and it's going to pass just to the south of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And again, there is the possibility of some small, non-severe hail.
Absolutely excellent information there, Jake. So, as you mentioned there, across and just outside of Fort Wayne, Indiana, a possibility of dime to penny size hail. And you mentioned the expected wind gusts. You mentioned at this point roughly 30 miles an hour. Of course, we mentioned initially in the area what was seen was a much higher wind gust, 67 miles per hour. Again, very high, though on average, it's going to be roughly 30, as you mentioned here. So, again, not as severe as that one initial sighting. Again, that's what it's averaging across the area. So, important distinction to make there. Again, certainly a little bit of a risk there, though all things considered. My understanding, Jake, correct me on this if I'm mistaken, not a whole lot of risk for damage. Maybe some minor things expected there, some slippery conditions possible, but that's about the extent of it, isn't it?
Yeah, and it also mentions here, so now I actually pulled up that special weather statement now that I can actually show it on the live stream here. And so you'll notice that minor hail damage to vegetation is possible. So again, half-inch hail and 30-mile-an-hour winds or less could, and it looks like there's, I mean, if we look at that hail core on this storm, of course, it's not really big hail, but it seems like there's a lot of it. And so that's something to kind of mention as well. So, all right, well, that's pretty much all that we have on this particular live update. Now, in the event that we were covering a severe weather event across the state of Missouri, of course, a lot of this information would be more localized. So, this is really the only day where it's not going to be super localized for the most part. So, because it is still that test run, also, in the event that this was a real, like a real severe weather event in the state of Missouri, we would also be providing instructions to what certain people should do, the timing of the different storms impacting different areas. So we would be doing that. We would be doing a lot more as well if this was a real severe weather live stream that we were doing here on GWP. And there's some other things that we may be adding in the future as well. And then the last thing that I do want to say is that we would also provide updates on how soon our next live stream would be. So we would say we're going to end the live stream for now, but we're going to come back in 30 minutes because this is a test run. This is going to be the only live stream for today, but in the event that a severe weather event were to happen, we would have multiple live streams throughout the day at different times.
Absolutely. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. Again, coming your way from Great World Productions. In the event of severe weather in the area, you can expect that on GWP Live, regular severe weather updates on that. Now, again, for ordinary weather updates, you can stay tuned for those every week on GWP News Weekly. And again, certain weeks, even twice a week with GWP Weekly recap again. So a number of great offerings coming your way. In addition, you don't have to just wait for severe weather to watch again different things from Great World Productions. A number of other things, of course, including our brand new series, What in the World? A new episode of that came out this week, episode 4, I believe. So check that out. Or GWP News Weekly if you haven't checked that out either. But again, all that and more coming. So want to stay tuned for all of that. But Jake, as you said, nothing too severe that we're looking at. There is a bit of that fire warning, as we mentioned here, across our listening and viewing area. So not a great day for burning. Avoid it if possible. And I suppose that's about the extent of it if there's nothing else you might add. Jake?
Yeah, I believe that is it.
Alrighty, well, I reckon it is. So we thank you all again for tuning in to GWP Live, but that about does it for now. So until next time,
I'm Jacob Fulmer.
and I'm Isaac Hedges, host of GWP Live, and from all of us at Great World Productions, good night and God bless.